Chapter 27. Subject, Rear Admiral Frederick Kennedy. Species, Gnuknu. Ship, USS Gaping Maw. Location, unknown. Start spinning this oversized tug and fire when ready, I ordered. Aye, aye, sir. The tack map began to rotate, and I pressed the option for it to remain static. A good portion of our fleets were still landing their Marines, and the rest were covering them. I tried not to think about how many enemy ships there actually were, and opted to simply conceptualize it as a lot. Thankfully, there were only so many ships that could attack us at once. Still a massive number, but manageable in a sense. The OU also had old warp technology, which forced them to warp further away from the grand vessel than we could. This distance was also inhibiting how many ships they could field at once. Our first volley traveled through the void and struck one of the many mobile prime platforms. There were far fewer of them than the rest of the ship types in the OU Armada, but still too many for us to be able to kill them all in a timely manner. Even assuming that we took no losses amongst our dreadnoughts, which would be a foolish assumption, it would take days of continuous fire to destroy them all, maybe even weeks. With Macs that could destroy most of our ships with a single shot, they posed the most significant risk to our defense. I watched our forces exchange fire, nervously glancing at our shields. Then I noticed a pattern emerge. The MPPs were only targeting ships that were participating in the defense, and they were only targeting the ones that were a certain distance from the... "Get us closer to the grand vessel," I said to Blavro. "Aye, sir," the captain gave me a confused expression. "As close as we can get without having to do a full burn to maintain our distance." The MPP that was responsible for our diminishing shield strength stopped firing. I happily clacked my beak. The enemy doesn't want to inadvertently damage the grand vessel. We can use that against them. Commander Stevens, let the rest of the Armada know that the enemy doesn't seem willing to accidentally shoot the GV. Aye, sir. We fired again and hit another MPP, our smaller guns picking off the smaller targets. It was a drop in the bucket, but our invasion force would need all the help it could get. I sighed at the swarm of red on the tack map, then noticed something alarming. "Sir, I think those mobile prime platforms are trying to get a Small shudders rocked the ship, interrupting Commander Horvu. 3 MPPs had flanked us and opened fire. I looked at the commander, smiling with my eyes. "You were saying?" I asked with tense amusement. "That'll teach me for thinking, sir. The enemy has repositioned so that they can fire at us without hitting the GV. 22 seconds until we can return fire. Evasive maneuvers. As best you can, Blavro." "Aye, aye, sir. Let's see what this tug can do. Do we have support?" No, sir. Looks like we're all in the same boat," Stevens said. "Damn, didn't take them long to adjust, did it? Thought it would buy us a bit more time than that." "Well, whilst the most of the OU fleet are comprised of virtual intelligences, the mobile prime platforms are actually organic-based artificial intelligences," Stevens lectured while typing frantically. "As such, their processing—" The USS Gaping Maw rocked as we took a palpable hit, interrupting the commander. I gripped my armrest and watched our shield indicator drop further and further. Our cannon fired, and the tack map tracked our projectile as it found its mark in one of the 3 MPPs. The large red dot that denoted the enemy vessel disappeared from the map a moment later. "Good hit, sir," Horvu reported. "Excellent work, Commander." "Keep it up," I replied. "Sir, I can get us some ships that have already made their drops," Stevens said. "A handful of destroyers." "Again?" I laughed, then sighed. "I don't think it will make much of a difference this time. Have them hold their line, and we'll just have to do the same. We'd found ourselves stuck in quite the predicament. If we pull back to let our shields recharge, the mobile prime platforms will chase us down. Then they'll either kill us anyway, or they'll take advantage of the hole we would be leaving and target the ships that haven't made their drops yet." I leaned back in my seat as another hit rocked the ship. "If we can take them out, we'll be fine. A lot of their ships are at a risky angle, and it will take some time for them to get into a position that will allow them to fire. These MPPs got lucky with their positioning. Lucky for them, unfortunate for us. Our shield dropped to less than a quarter as we fired our second shot. I tried to do the math to determine if we would survive to get a third shot off. It would be close. Very close. "Another good hit, sir," Horvu said. "One more," I replied. The only sound aboard the bridge for the next few moments were terminals being utilized. It was obvious that everyone was trying to make peace with what might happen next, while actively doing their best to prevent it. I examined my crew, noting the stone-cold expressions present on each of their faces. I wondered how many of my crew had families that will miss them. Blavro and Stevens do, but they'd volunteered that information. I wasn't the type to pry into my junior's personal affairs, so I had never asked. Maybe that's because I don't have a family of my own. No wife, no kids, no parents, and no other family that I'm on speaking terms with. One's own situation tends to impact how one views the universe around them. If we survive this, I'll have to make sure to get some more one-on-one time with my crew and get to know them better. Some of their expressions started to shift from stoicism to concern. The threat of imminent death is corrosive to morale, and even the strongest people can crack under this kind of pressure. I've always hated giving speeches, but there's something I've been meaning to say anyway. Whatever happens next, I want you all to know that I'm proud of you, I said, breaking the silence. You're a damn fine crew, and if it's possible to make it through this, I know we'll find a way. Even if firing, Horvu interrupted. Thank fuck, I exclaimed. I watched the round travel across the TAC map. Without even thinking about it, I silenced the alarm warning me that our shield had run out. We collectively held our breath as our round met the big red dot on the map. A moment passed, but the dot remained. Shit, glancing blow! Horvu slammed a fist on his station. I'm sorry, sir. I pulled up the external view and zoomed in on the MPP. A large chunk of the planet-sized ship had been torn off, but it still remained functional. I sighed softly and switched back to the TAC map. That's it, we're finished. Even with all the guns that we'd just destroyed on the MPP, it still had more than enough to gut us. Only a matter of time now. I pondered what comes after death. Is it nothingness? Or will I be taken to some sort of paradise? I wonder if I will go to a human paradise or a nuke-new paradise. My adoptive parents were Catholic, but I'd always felt like an outsider in church. I only prayed when I was guilted into it, and I stopped going the moment I had the option. I guess that means eternal damnation is also a possibility. I wouldn't mind seeing my mom and dad again in the afterlife. No, that's defeatist thinking. We're not dead yet, and we still have a chance to take this fucker down. A very, very slim chance, but it's better than nothing. Let's try to finish it off before it finishes us off, I said. Target. Wait, what? A very small, friendly dot appeared directly next to the red one. Before I could bring up any information, the MPP disappeared from the TAC map. I sat there, mouth agape, trying to figure out what happened. The bridge remained silent for a time before Stevens expressed what we were all thinking. What the hell just happened? Chapter 28. Subject, Captain Young. Ship, USS Liberty. Location, unknown. It's down, sir, Commander Ying said. Yet another cruiser destroyed. Didn't even put up a fight. Not that it could. We had warped into its blind spot and unloaded both Macs directly into its keel. Good work, find another target, I replied. I couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy. It felt like not that long ago we had been excited about our first chance to kill a battleship. Now we've been fighting the Omni-Union for a while now, and our kill count has risen to heights I hadn't even dared to dream of. But the only ships the OU have that actually stand a chance against us are these damn Mobile Prime platforms. The enemy cruisers and battleships have weaponry that could kill us, but they're so damn slow that if we were to actually get hit, it would be due to our own negligence. The ships with tonnage closer to our own lack firepower that can get through our armor and shields without the need for extensive focused fire. The real threat in this battle sphere are the MPPs. They have Macs that can rip us bow to stern with a single round, and they have plenty of them. Unfortunately, our weapons don't stand a chance against the planet-covered fucks. We could open up with every piece of ordnance at our disposal and not even come close to reaching anything vital. As a result, the MPPs are prey only to the dreadnoughts. You think we'll ever get the chance to serve on a dreadnought, sir? Ying asked, either reading my mind or sharing my train of thought. Blasphemy, I laughed. Kill counts stay with the ship, they don't follow the crew. So, obviously, the USS Liberty is the only ship I'll ever captain. Fair enough, sir. Oh, a 2-for-1. Nice shot, Ensign. Everyone on the bridge took one hand off their terminal and lightly tapped it against their cheek. Double kills are a rare enough feat that they deserve acknowledgement, but one should keep at least one hand on one's station during a fight. The result was a sound reminiscent of a golf clap. I turned my attention to Ensign Smith, the USS Liberty's new weapons officer. Our previous guns guy, an Alumari named Commander Hargorth, had retired with honors. I'd hardly ever heard a word out of Hargorth, and rarely had to give him orders. It was easy to forget he was even aboard most times. Smith is also quiet, but that's because he's new and inexperienced. He had spent more than his fair share of time in simulators, but the real thing is always more visceral. Thankfully, he'd gotten over most of his jitters and made his newbie mistakes rather quickly. Thank you, ma'am, he replied. Ying gave me a smug look. I have enough self-awareness to know that the way that I run things isn't for everyone. As such, I've had a hard and fast rule against allowing Boots to join my crew. Boots have certain expectations regarding how things are run, and the clash between their expectations and my reality causes undue stress. Of course, most captains try to implement such a rule and fail, but I usually got away with it because of my combat record and connections. Not this time, though. The powers that be claimed there weren't enough experienced weapons techs to go around, citing an unbelievable amount of uncrewed vessels. I had tried to fight their decision, even demanded that the slot be left open until we found an acceptable candidate. But Commander Ying convinced me to allow it. Now she was rubbing it in. "The fuck are you looking at, XO?" I said with sarcastic aggression. "Just a bloodthirsty captain that thinks he knows everything, sir," she replied with a grin. "Ha! Not today. Today I'm thirsty for oil, or whatever it is that the OU runs off of. Reactor fuel? Whatever. What's our count, Smith?" 287 corvettes, 152 frigates, 86 destroyers, 15 cruisers, and 3 battleships, sir," the ensign said. "And yet I remain unsated," I laughed. Alas, I might be cursed with a never-ending need for conquest and violence. Perhaps I am simply a glutton for the life juices of our enemies, as Commander Ying claims. Maybe I'm doomed to live with an eternal desire for the death of any who would dare call themselves my enemy, clawing and clamoring for ever-growing heights of madness and mayhem. A few chuckles came from the bridge crew in response to my sudden, overly dramatic monologue. "But then where would I be without my crew?" I asked with a grin. "A crew that shares both my thirst and my fate. You may point your finger and call me bloodthirsty, XO, but you've supped nearly as much as I." "Yeah, but I can retire when my term is up," Ying laughed. "You're a lifer, and we all know it." "Damn straight." The Liberty suddenly rocked from the impact of a Mac round, and I glanced at Lieutenant Johnson. He dipped his head apologetically. "My bad, sir." "Fat-fingered it," he said. "Well, put your fingers on a diet, Lieutenant. You don't want to be the one responsible for the destruction of the deadliest destroyer in the universe, do you?" "Hell no, sir!" I looked at our shield indicator, noting that the round had likely come from a frigate. The overall TAC map had quickly turned into a damn mess, so I had it zoomed in around our immediate area. I zoomed out slightly and found the frigate that had shot us, then marked it for Smith. "I expected things to be a bit more chaotic," I said. "A good portion of the enemy forces simply aren't engaging us." "Well, it looks like Fleet Comm is right and they don't want to damage the, what was it again?" Ying asked. "The Grand Vessel," Johnson replied. "Worthy of the name based on size alone," I said. "Why hasn't it collapsed on itself?" "Scuttlebutt says they've cracked anti-gravity," Ying said. "When did you have time to listen to gossip?" "When we were aboard the Kali." "The anti-gravity field, or whatever it is, probably extends beyond the hull of the GV, too," Johnson interjected. "Otherwise, we'd be squished against their hull at this distance. Though I've noticed that there's still some gravity." "Let me see if I can tell how much," Ying said, turning her attention back to her terminal. "Johnson's right. We've got a bit of gravity. Looks like we're dealing with—" "Sir, we've received a request for aid from—" "Nope, never mind. They've canceled the request." "Who was it?" I asked. "The USS Gaping Maw. They're up against 3 MPPs. "Really? And they don't want help?" "All we've got available is destroyers and frigates. They probably figure that they're doomed, and it's best not to take us down with them." Damn. I returned my attention to the TAC map, this time focusing on the Gaping Maw. They had already popped one of the planet-sized ships. I pulled up the ship info to see who was commanding it, then chuckled. "Rear Admiral Kennedy," I said. "The Nuknu from Mars?" Johnson asked. "Could be a different—" "Oh, who am I kidding?" "There's only one Admiral Kennedy," Ying chuckled. "Yep, sure is. I went to command school with him, you know," I said with a nod. "Smart guy, very tactical. It would be a shame to lose him to such an inferior foe." As I said that, another MPP disappeared from the map. I watched as the asteroids began to drift toward the Grand Vessel. That's going to leave one hell of a mess. Hopefully it's far enough away from the invasion force that they won't be impacted. "That's 2 down," Ying said. "Think he'll get the 3rd? "The only choice he has is to succeed or die trying," I replied as I pulled up some schematics. "Let's hope he has a competent crew." I studied the schematics we made from the MPPs we'd disarmed in the Milky Way. All of the important bits of the planet-sized ship were buried under tons of metal, stone, and dirt. Not as much as an actual planet, but enough to make it completely immune to any weapons aboard a simple destroyer. We would have to punch through all of that just to get a kill shot. No convenient weaknesses that we could use to become a deus ex machina for the gaping maw. Freddy Feathers was gonna have to do or die. Nothing we can do to help. Maybe if we take out some of the guns? Smith suggested. Negative, I replied. There's too many guns on the damn thing for us to make a difference in time. If the gaping maw fails to get the kill, we'd end up in a one-on-one with an enemy we can't beat. Even with the Alpha-class WMDs? Yep. The only reason the powers that be cleared their usage is because they'll probably be useless. You really think they want us burning money like that? No, sir. Ships have point defense lasers, the MPPs are too damn thick, and the GV is full of civilians. I sighed. The WMDs are useless. It's a damn shame. I've always wanted to use... The USSS Gaping Maw fired its third shot and my breath caught in my throat. I watched the round closely as it traveled to the mobile prime platform. But the MPP didn't disappear from the map. I switched to external view and realized what had happened. A glancing blow. But, arm every class we have, I shouted with glee. Aye, sir, Smith replied with a deep concern in his voice. Johnson, we need to be here. Make it so, I said, sending him coordinates. What are we doing, sir? Ying asked. We're saving the gaping maw. Let's move it, people! I watched indicators for the Alpha-class WMDs light up as Smith armed them. A moment later, we entered warp and reappeared in real space surrounded by MPP rubble. I marked a target, switched the TAC map to our overhead hologram, and rose from my seat. Fire everything we have, I ordered, clasping my hands behind my back. The USS Gaping Maw had failed to kill the mobile prime platform, but their glancing blow had done something wonderful. It had exposed the planet-like ship's reactor, giving us an incredible opportunity. Firing aye, sir, Smith said. We all watched the TAC map as our missiles and MAC rounds made their way toward the mobile prime platform. My bridge crew's jaws dropped as they realized what was happening. A maniacal grin spread across my features. After about half of the Ordo hit the MPP, the big red dot disappeared from the screen. I reached down and switched to real view from our external cameras. Giant rocks with bits of metal floated serenely in front of us, along with several artificial singularities. What's our count, XO? I asked through my grin. 289 corvettes, 154 frigates, 86 destroyers, 15 cruisers, 3 battleships, and a mobile prime platform, Ying said in an awed tone. Holy shit, Ensign Smith muttered.